We wouldn't deny the fact that we enjoy good streams, but recently we came across one that was not only weird, but also suspicious. On investigation, we found something wrong. This weird show was organized by some Japanese creators who were inhumane enough to make the show about torturing a full human being for 1 wire plus. Consequently, compilations of each week's torture would be broadcasted every Sunday night. The show, named Station, speedily saw an influx of over 17 million views weekly, and guess what? This reached 204 million views in a matter of 1 year. Here's the thing, the famous Squid Game series had 111 million views in just a month, and a mere stream show tailing this figure was quite impressive. But let us consider why exactly this stream was creepy. Now, in order to achieve their goals, the crazy organizers sent advertisements all over Japan, calling for those interested in working somewhere entertainment-related. As a cunning offer for payment, the chosen person was to win many prizes for the job done, and many ignorant people soon came rushing in within a few days. The selection soon began, and within a matter of minutes, there was a happy winner to kickstart the show. They had no clue on exactly what was to play out. Rejoicing heartily, the participant was ignorant about what he was signing up for. Unknowingly, this weird show would be one hell of an experience that would change his life forever. Known as Una SUV, the participant was initially a comedian that lacked fame, and he saw this show as an opportunity to change his fortune, but he was wrong. The venue for the show was the first red flag to confront Una SUV. In the apartment were nothing but stacks of magazines, a telephone, some envelopes, and a stove. There were no other furniture or food supplies. Indeed, the apartment was lacking in basic appliances and people, but the same apartment was prepared to be a ready cage for Una SUV, who had to take off his clothes, as the first rule of the game. Little did he know that he would be naked for a whole year, and get this underscore, he was going to be a naked prisoner, unable to leave that place for anything. According to the rules, he would only be able to leave by continually playing in the pool sections of the magazine, where he would fill out his information, put them in an envelope, and send them as a letter. He has to do this until he is able to win prizes that could amount to 1 million yen. Only then will he be able to go free. Now the race had begun for freedom with the task of gathering 1 million yen through the prizes won. But sadly, Una SUV was unable to win any prize that was worthwhile, as he frequently ended up with stuffed animals and personal hygiene products. On special days, he could win more expensive items such as televisions and all. But here is the catch. Una SUV was oblivious to the fact that he was being recorded. He was recorded the whole time, and his weekly ordeals were then condensed and aired on Sunday night. How terrible this was, especially bearing in mind the fact that he was naked through it all. Wasn't he cold? Well, the producers seemed to have been so pleased with the outcome of the show that they wouldn't even let him go in the end. Rather, they would ensure that he played for months. As you would later see, the resilient Una SUV finished the game earlier than expected, but the producers were not pleased, desiring to torture him for a longer time. From the start, the producers had already started to shame Una SUV by giving him the nickname SUV, which indicated a reference to the censored image that hid his private parts, which meant eggplant. So, Eggplant soon became his nickname whenever the show was aired on TV and was continually used as a censored image. Now we must note that at this point, Una SUV lacked food, clothing, and whatever you can think of. He soon started to play the game, entering the first contest for an apron, which he didn't get. Just within a month, he had sent up to 5,600 tickets with nothing to show. The awards from the game were instant response awards, so it was easy to know when you won or lost almost immediately. To further make fond of the player, the producers would call immediately after a game was submitted, making the player excited, thinking that he had won a prize. But his hopes will soon be shattered by the producers simply telling him that he had lost and that the number was wrong. During this game, they also further perpetrated evil by sending food delivery drivers even when he didn't upload or submit anything, giving him the illusion he had won something again. But the disappointment continued. A good example of one of these moments of torture happened when there was no food for 10 days. A food delivery driver showed up at the doorstep with food, only to tell the excited Unasuv that he had mistakenly come to the wrong address. Tortures and pranks like this, though not nice, had the most views, so the producers continued to do them regularly throughout the show. Moving on, SUV won his first prize of 12 packages of fiber jelly candies from one of his uploads. Things were starting to look up as a few days later he also won 5 kilograms of rice. In the end, this was another funny joke, as there was nothing in the kitchen to use in cooking this rice, not even a pot. Now some have food, but they can't eat, or can they? To everyone's amusement, SUV had tried to eat the rice raw that way out of desperation, but how possible was that? Funny enough, he wasn't motivated to upload anything in the following days until he got an idea. Shockingly, SUV was creative enough to find a way around this obstacle. He soon utilizes the leftover containers of the fiber jelly, forming an improvised pot. He places these containers very close to the fire and not directly over it. In them was the rice and water to cook it. The rice slowly but successfully got cooked in this process. Although it was half done, the rice was now edible. Cheers to creativity. Thankfully, his money had started accumulating as he began to win prizes. Knowing this, he was ever filled with joy and rejoiced in amusing ways whenever he received any of these prizes, no matter how little they were. These little wins soon became powerful motivations to continue. As the weeks went by, SUV continued playing but was still winning very cheap prizes. During this time, however, he had developed better ways to cook his rice. Funnily, he soon won a bicycle for indoor pleasure alongside a woman's underwear. It was already over a month in solitary, and funny things kept happening, with the next prize being a toy seal. This toy seal soon became his only companion in the long run. With no one else to talk to, he was back to his childhood lifestyle of playing with toys. But who would dare to blame him? The struggle continued, and within an entire 3 months, SUV was only able to win about 5 pieces of meat, which became his next meal after he had exhausted his rice in 3 months. But his spirit still didn't faint, as it remained motivated. Probably thanks to this motivation, he was able to win a video game alongside a controller in a few days. Now here is the twist. The video game proved to be the only other thing to do in the empty house, aside from uploading, but there was no way to play it, so nothing changed about his routine. Even had more time to make more uploads instead. SUV continued to starve, with no one to talk to and nothing to entertain himself with, though he was consistently entertaining others weekly. He soon won a vacuum cleaner. To the amazement of all, this was the first time he was able to clean the apartment after 3 whole months. It was also another way to keep him busy. After a while, he was finally able to win a television, but on plugging it in, he felt mocked by the producers as it only displayed static. The next win was a toothbrush. This would be the first time he could brush his teeth in 3 months. Finally, things were about to get tense without him knowing. First of all, he ran out of rice and was left with nothing to eat. The need to survive became pressing, and after starving for a while, he soon became scared, praying to God not to abandon him. But things never improved because there was still no food in sight. The days were rolling, and he had no motivation to upload anything due to hunger. In desperation, he was able to finally win dog food. Although it was dog food, he was so hungry that he didn't mind. Even the bad taste did not deter him from eating it. Again, more crazy was the fact that after this, a whole month went by without winning any proper meal, so he was left to continue eating dog food. Now, we also cannot judge him for losing his pride. SUV's sufferings were not ordinary, as many people ended up speculating that the producers purposely switched his packages on the way, taking away the food he earned and replacing it with dog food. But amidst his sufferings, the show's audience kept growing. As for Unasuv, it was obvious that he wasn't here for the prices, as no one in his right senses would spend 6 months getting tortured and doing these stupid things. Then again, he couldn't have entered competitions for animal food, so, according to many, his packages were likely changed while on the way. Now it turns out that even though they continually made him eat dog food to torture him, Unasuv soon adjusted to his predicament. In a video, he says that he is now used to eating dog food, even though he still desires to earn rice again. His desire was soon met with favor because after a while, he was able to win another bag of rice. And interestingly, this one weighed 10 kilos, causing him to return to eating something meant for a human being. It was quite amazing to see how he rejoiced at this improvement. Amazing, but also sad. According to him, he was about to eat something normal again, and he had earned it, being the motivation that he needed at that point. He says he had made it past the finish line. It was sad to see that this was him rejoicing her to leave for something that he could have easily gotten outside this cage. Now here is another twist. SUV happened to have made too many uploads that fans soon discovered where the house he was locked in was, so the producers had to change location. Following this, they got there in the morning, woke him up, and blindfolded him. They put him in the truck and then started taking him somewhere unknown. But the sad part of this was that he didn't know they were only changing his location, but thought he had won the game finally. The man definitely had no clue that his sufferings were just beginning. However, his assumption to have won was soon dismantled as the realization hits him that his location was only being changed and nothing else. To make things worse, he still was not informed that his actions were constantly being recorded and broadcast every Sunday night. Funnily, he was later informed that he was being moved to another house so that he could have better luck winning more prizes. At this point, so many things were hidden from SUV, and it all blended with the idea to probably make him more confused, deducing funny reactions from him, which would later become the highlights of the week. In the new house, he started well, winning some prizes, but this luck was eventually short-lived. Sadly, he had won nothing in a while, so he desperately lamented that he wasn't doing any better. The worst part was the yet to come, as all he won later were annoying hotel cards. Breaking down in tears was the only reaction he could give, calling all these things rubbish and useless. Actually, he was right to call them useless because that is actually what they are. Very importantly, they couldn't help him in any way, both within the house and probably outside. Interesting to know how the producers can claim to have moved him in order to give him more luck. But the only luck that he got was in the fact that he got to see movies. He also started earning some minute meals, and after a while he was able to get another videotape. This was the producers showing him some mercy by ensuring that he has the little luxury of entertainment gotten from watching only 2 movies. The struggle soon continues for Una SUV, and it even gets more pathetic when after an expanse of 10 whole months, the producers finally allow him the luxury of winning a toilet paper. To the amazement of all, this was the first time since the show began that he would be able to use something as basic as this. His luck did not significantly rise after this. However, he later got to win a PlayStation, which made him so excited that he played with it for a stretch of 4 days without stopping. He soon earned the spot of being the first person to play a video game while on stream. He achieved this, at least. Amazingly, while playing the video game, he didn't mind not sending any uploads or forms to win prizes. All he wanted to do was relieve his stress by playing video games all day long. But he had freedom at the back of his mind still, and also wanted that. Later, his upload soon won him tires that were worth 84,000 yen. Ideally, he was close to freedom, and 2 weeks later, the producers were less annoying enough to allow him to win a 2 kilograms bag of rice in a challenge. So far, he had spent almost a year in this room, naked. We don't know how he did it, but he has also been able to survive the terrible experiences of lack of food and the loneliness that comes with having no one to talk to. He was literally separated from the world and all. But Unasuv still didn't know that this was all streamed. The producers were not done with him yet, as they soon came in one day in the early hours of the morning, waking him up annoyingly and causing him to react in a very funny way, believing that it was all over and that there would be no more torture going forward. He was made to wear clothes, but we encounter another funny twist here. Instead of being happy that he was no longer naked, he declared that he now feels very uncomfortable in clothing, saying that it even reaches him. This demonstrates the many things that had happened to him psychologically in the house. He soon took the clothes off again. On this outing, he was treated to a delicious ramen for breakfast, something he had long missed. After allowing him to eat as much as he could, they took him to an amusement park. Of course, all the producers were celebrating him at the moment. More ways to mock him were brooding behind the scenes. The good times were almost over as the story was about to take another twist that would not make any viewer happy for SUV. The producers soon covered his eyes again, this time taking him to a new location. He got into the house and his blindfold was taken off, and then he was asked to pull off his clothes again. Reality soon dawned on him, and from his expression, he wasn't pleased. But this didn't bother the producers who had made so much money from the game, making them more greedy with the desire to continue. To make more money, the games had to continue. However, the turnout of events on SUV was not funny at all. His hopes were being dashed all over again as he did not intend to return to his previous predicament after all that celebration. Actually, no one else but the producers expected it. The producers soon came up with more rules to win, asking SUV to raise more money for a plane ticket to Japan. This trick had worked, seeing that SUV had no clue where he was at the moment. He had no clue how far away he was from home and probably understood that the plane ticket might be necessary, but this would probably mean another long period of torture. Eventually, he was told that he was in Korea and needed 47,000 yen for the tickets. For this stage, they made things even more difficult by changing the language of things to Korean, giving him a dictionary to help him translate the Korean magazines. SUV had no clue how to start filling these forms, and it took him 2 whole months to make 47,000 yen. But even this was too fast for the producers, who did not expect that he would have such luck to find his way out of their trap. Once again, they were not pleased at all. The producers needed to generate more money, so they were not letting SUV go. Instead, they introduced the silly idea of moving up the target amount needed to return to Japan to 57,000 yen, telling him it was needed for a business-class plane ticket. Being ignorant of their craftiness, SUV continued to participate in the game. Surprisingly, in a few days, he reached the new amount again, but the producers were still desperate to keep him, so they pushed up the target again to meet up with a first-class ticket. To amaze all, this ticket was to cost another 81,000 yen more. In the end, SUV was lucky enough to gather all this money in just 91 days from producers. It only took more torture and unpredictability of the future. They even went as far as trying to make him stay by offering him the chance to win a ticket to Paris. Amazingly, he was able to win this one quickly as well. When the producer finally ran out of options, they decided to end things in an interesting way. They came at dawn, waking him up and blindfolding him. They soon entered a new room. And here's the interesting part. Without waiting for any instruction, SUV, used to the trend, takes off his clothes, ready to continue. But suddenly the walls of the fake room fell, and there was an audience all around, congratulating him for winning while making fun as well. His expression of shock was epic. Not going out, he later started watching the program for himself, and it is interesting to note that he wasn't offended, though the program got cancelled shortly after. But SUV was not the same anymore. Life without consistent uploading was not the same, and he also complains of not being able to wear clothes for the next 6 months. The show's producer eventually apologized to him, but declared that he had no regrets for creating the show. He was now a millionaire after all. As for SUV, he still wasn't able to become the famous comedian he dreamt of being. Instead, he gave up his dreams as he was now too shy and had low social skills. He managed to make a few appearances after the show, on TV. He also managed to make some money out of the diary that he had written while inside the room, but that was all he got after a long time of suffering for 15 months. Today, SUV lives a simple life and says he is grateful for the whole experience.